This video is going to be about conditional statements, Chapter 2, Section 3, pages 107 to 110. If-then statements are called conditional statements. They are sometimes shortened to just conditionals. They're written with the words if and then. For example, if it rains after school, then I will give you a ride home. If a plus 2 equals 9, then a is equal to 7. If-then statements are made up of a hypothesis and a conclusion. The hypothesis, often referred to as the letter P, follows the word if. The conclusion, often referred to as Q, follows the word then. This can be written as if P, then Q. That is a shorthand formula. If it rains after school, then I will give you a ride home. Well, P, or the hypothesis, is if it rains after school, and Q, or the conclusion, is I will give you a ride home. In this example, P, or the hypothesis, is a plus 2 equals 9, and Q, or the conclusion, is a equals 7. Conditional statements have truth values. That means they can be true or they can be false. If a statement is false, then it has a counterexample, which is an example that disproves a statement, or it shows that it is false. The converse of a conditional is formed by interchanging the hypothesis and the conclusion. So if our original statement is if P then Q, our converse becomes if Q then P. A statement and its converse say different things. Some converses are true and some converses are false. For example, statement, if 4x is equal to 20, then x is equal to 5. Well, the converse of that statement is if x is equal to 5, then 4x is equal to 20. This converse is true. If x equals to 5, then one example would be that 4x is equal to 20. Both of these statements are true. Here is another example. The statement says, if Ed lives in Texas, then he lives south of Canada. The converse would state, if Ed lives south of Canada, then he lives in Texas. This is a false converse because we can find a counterexample. Ed can live in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is south of Canada, but it's not Texas. Maryland is south of Canada, but it's not Texas. California is south of Canada, but it's not Texas. In this example, the converse is false because there are numerous counterexamples. Remember, it only takes one counterexample to disprove a statement. Even if there are many examples that prove the statement true, all we need is one counterexample. A converse is only true if no counterexamples can be found. We also have what is called a biconditional. If a conditional and its converse are both true, they can be combined into a single statement using the words if and only if. A statement that contains the words if and only if is called a biconditional because it fits two conditions at the same time. So, for example, I could say P, if and only if Q. Every definition can be written as a biconditional. So if I have the definition, congruent segments are segments that have equal lengths, which is something that we know. I can turn it into a biconditional by saying segments are congruent if and only if their lengths are equal. They say the same thing, but they are written differently. We also have the inverse. The inverse of a conditional is formed by negating the hypothesis and the conclusion. So the statement says, if P then Q, and the inverse or the negation reads, if not P, then not Q. So in the inverse, we are making the hypothesis and the conclusion the opposite. So, but to do that, we add the word not. So, for example, my statement is, if an animal is a lion, then it can roar. My inverse states, if an animal is not a lion, then it cannot roar.
This inverse is false, since tigers are not lions, but they can roar.
So as long as we can find one counter example, the inverse is false. Well, why do we need to know this? Every theorem that we will be using will be written as a conditional statement. They will also be written as biconditional statements. Many theorems have converses that need to be learned. So in order to understand what we will be learning in the future, we need to have a grasp of conditional statements in the present. Don't forget to bring any questions or comments you might have to class. Feel free to email me before class with any concerns you may have so they can be addressed during class tomorrow.